Hi, Gabriela. Thank you for joining me on this podcast today.
Hi, thank you so much for the invitation.
So, today, Gabriela, you're going to talk to us about faith and overcoming hurdles, challenges in your life, and kind of where you are today.
Yes, I really appreciate this opportunity that you are giving me. Um, yes, indeed, I many people, I had a lot of challenges, I realized that. Many of these challenges were actually like blessing in disguise. Of course, I didn't thought of them on the spot,
Yes,
but
yes.
later on, and one of the actually the most important aspect that what helped me in overcoming this and maintaining like the optimism in life was my faith.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of what life was like before you found um, faith and being able to kind of talk to us and take us through a bit of a journey? What was exposed to you, and then when you found this faith and spirituality, and how that changed the course of your life?
Sure. So, I felt, in some way, disconnected since I was as a little child with, what I saw, around me. Like, for example, since I was very little, I had like a deep compassion for animals, and I always struggle with this idea of, harming animals, and for me, it felt weird. Like, why are other people are not feeling the same? You know.
And is that
Uh,
something that your parents attributed to, or is it just something that was just innate? It was already there.
no, on the contrary, no one in my family or my friends shared my belief, and this actually made me feel like a bit of outsider,
Mm.
from this perspective, because actually my family was I decided when I was young, and I felt like the courage to confront my parents. I decided, to stop eating any meat. And
Wow. I mean, was you really young? I mean, how did your
I was
parents
20.
react to that?
Yeah, I was 10 years old, and it was not pre-adolescence or that idea of being rebellious. So I had no intention of, being rebellious just for the
Mm.
sake of being rebellious.
Right.
I was just, trying. You are on your path of discovering like who you are,
Mm.
and I, I felt that it's not in my nature to eat meat and to kill animals, and my parents, actually were against me, against this idea. But
Mm.
in the end, they realized that they cannot um, um, force me.
So this sounds like there was something always within you then. It wasn't something that somebody had taught you or you had
Yes.
seen.
Yeah, yeah, it was something. And actually, many years after, I discovered that this strong feeling that I had actually
Mm.
was a sort of sukriti, like it's called like feelings from past lives, you know.
Right. So
Like,
you would see that as this is something that was unfinished from a previous life?
yeah, yeah, it was the.
Interesting.
I know that maybe this is confusing for people who do not believe in in past lives and so on. But for me, it made sense,
Mm.
like when I heard about first time about this idea of secreting, like namely that, when we uh, get another body, and another life. We in some way we are influenced by the experience from our previous life.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that was the explanation for my belief since I was little. And one more interesting thing, which is
Mm.
also linked to this security, my mother, who had some issues regarding insomnia.
Mm.
Even today, a lot of people deal with this issue of not being able to sleep and so on. And a doctor recommended her like 2 Ayurveda books, and she took the books and put it in the in our library,
Wow. Yes.
and never touched them. And at the same time, when I decided to give up eating meat, so it was around the same period. I just took those books, which was were like 400 pages each, and
Right.
just read them in like 2 days,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
taking notes, and deciding to follow this Ayurvedic principle, a way of eating.
Right. And that was Ayurvedic eating is meat-free eating.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so but they're not related, they were not so of course they were related, but they were like I gave up meat before reading these books,
Right. Right.
but these books, just supported me,
Yes.
validated my feelings of, I don't think it's right to eat meat.
Yes.
And
Yes.
reading those books was the first time that I get, ha- felt the connection with the Vedic, with the Indian ancient wisdom.
Wow. And how ironic was that? That your
Yeah,
parents were kind of didn't know or didn't understand anything about
yeah,
it, and then your
yeah,
mother has insomnia. Someone
yeah,
hands her these Ayurvedic books, and you pick
yeah,
them up
yeah,
already practicing
yeah,
meat-free
yeah,
eating, and then they just are just there, all in alignment with kind
yeah,
of how you're conducting your life, even at that very young age.
yeah,
That's
yes.
really amazing.
Yeah, actually, I didn't seen this like something amazing at that time,
Yes.
and I didn't make any connections between, these two ideas. But when I discovered like Krishna consciousness, which is like part of Hinduism, and it's part of it's based on Vedic culture and on ancient scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So uh, later on, many years after, like I discovered it when I was like 34 years old. It all made sense. My journey up to to that point.
So
All,
prior to that, was you brought up in a different faith? What was going on at home during this period of time?
Yeah, so I was my parents were not actually practicing any religion. You of course know that many people nowadays declares as them like I'm Muslim or I'm Christian and so on, but it's just on paper. It's like uh, no one actually is practicing. A lot
Mm.
of people are actually not practicing anything related to their faith.
Mm.
But my grandmother was actually practicing, was reading the Bible and other, holy books. And
Ooh.
she was, whenever I visited her, I went with her for many hours during, on Sunday to the church. And I felt very good, on
Mm.
in that, spiritual places.
Yes.
I have this belief, that we need to respect all the faith, and it's like someone who, is like really connected with a specific faith. I
Mm.
think it feels the spirituality in all the other holy places that she is.
Absolutely. So did you feel connected to your grandmother, like perhaps more than other members of your family, because
Yes,
she was
yes,
already spiritually inclined and already
yes.
faith driven?
Yes, actually, she was my first guru. You know, it is said in Vedic scripture that
Amazing.
you like your the mother. You know, usually is like the first guru of a child. In my case, was my grandmother,
Yes.
and she instilled in me this like discipline because any faith actually implies discipline and the responsibility and like a sadhana, you know, like a spiritual practice that you need to do every day. So yeah, she was my first guru, and I'll
Mm,
be forever grateful to her.
amazing.
And I feel very blessed. I think it's a blessing for every child to have in his or her family, to have someone who is has a deep faith and is a good role model, you know.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I just wanted to go back on, which was your spiritual practice. I mean, having had large influences from your grandmother, had that changed the course and direction of your life as a result? Or do you think you would have made different choices and decisions if you wasn't sort of spiritually inclined?
yeah, so to be honest, it's a good question. I can't imagine, you know, how my life would have been without her influence. She really, you know, she really inspired me, you know, to always try to have like good relationship with other people, so to forgive, like to be kind. And she was really practicing what she was, you know, teaching to me. And Yeah, I think without her example, her teachings, it would have
Mm,
been difficult, you know, to practice what Krishna consciousness, because
mm,
you know, it requires as I mentioned, a lot of, you know, discipline and um a lot of no, it implies you to be like humble person, and you know, try to forgive and not take offenses and so on, which
mm.
these principles are, you know, very aligned, you know, to Christian principles that I learned from my grandmother.
That's pretty amazing. And I think also it can be incredibly isolating taking on a different faith or a different philosophy that is in line but actually doesn't follow the principles altogether sometimes of
Uh-huh.
another faith, and then having members of your family perhaps not understanding, especially if they're not spiritually inclined. And I think that can be quite difficult within a family. So it sounds like your grandmother kind of gave you the foundations and security for you
Uh-huh.
to be able to maneuver in the direction of Krishna consciousness, and giving you
Correct.
some sort of encouragement to be able to
Uh-huh.
pursue that.
Yeah, and to be honest, when the first time when she heard about, you know, that I'm, you know, practicing this faith, she was a bit upset. It was the first time in my life where when she was upset on with me, but it didn't take like too long. Like in several weeks,
Mm,
I was visiting a monastery. You know, I called her, and she said that, you know, she understands me and wish me good luck on this path. So I was so impressed, you know, that although it was not the same faith with her,
yes.
she respected me, my choice, and it was unbelievably, an unbelievable feeling for me that she understood, because we all know that at the base of all of our relationship with other people is understanding, you know. And to
Yeah,
understand others, you can't have like a deep relationship with people who don't understand you.
sure, definitely. And, it sounds like you were kind of also like given the go ahead to go and explore. And
Yeah.
that's really, really important. One of the
Mhm.
questions, I wanted to ask you was, do you think your faith has attributed to the decisions that you have made in your life, choices in terms of employment, family, relationships? Has all this contributed to kind of the choices that you've made due to the faith that you follow?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It had an important impact on how I'm perceiving difficulties, and also attachments. For
Mm.
example, when my family members, my grandmothers, my two grandmothers, my grandparents, which I had like a very deep connection with, they got sick and died. Um, when I was not in Krishna consciousness, it felt like overwhelming for me. I was so when my first grandmother died, I was like, from my mother's side, I was so negatively impacted. It's like it affected even my professional life because I couldn't focus. It affected my relationship with my partner from that time because I felt that he doesn't support me or understand me. So that was due to the very strong attachments that I had, and it took me some time to realize that the reason why I was so anxious and deeply affected was because I myself was afraid of my own death. So
Mm.
it
Mm.
took me a lot of time to understand that one of the reason why I was so affected by the death of my dear ones was not only the attachments that I have to them, but also the attachments that I have to my own life. You know,
Right, right. And do you feel like the attachment was um, connected to more just not knowing about kind of the principles of kind of
exactly.
life and death, and
Yeah,
so therefore not knowing leads you down a path of disarray, confusion.
yeah.
It takes you down that path, and then after following Krishna consciousness, was you able to kind of make sense of
Yes. It
bereavement?
totally. Yes, sorry, it was totally different. So,
Mm.
after I, discovered Krishna consciousness and Vedic knowledge, and especially after, discovering what is written in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2 about, disattachments and life and death and so on. Um, so it totally changed my view.
Mm.
And the other grandmother from my father's side that was my first guru. When she died, I had like a totally different approach. I was much more calm. I didn't felt confusion and I was at the I accepted what happened and I understood what happened. And so it was a huge difference between
Mm.
how I dealt with the death of dear ones before and after Krishna consciousness.
And is that because by then you had studied Krishna consciousness, you
Exactly.
were
Yeah.
reading into it, you were
Yeah.
understanding the process of birth and death and all its
Yeah.
principles?
Yeah, it was all due to this knowledge. It's like I understood. So studying Bhagavad Gita, going to lessons on Vedic philosophy. I got the answers that I was searching for consciously or subconsciously.
Mm.
And I understood the main principles. That I'm not this body, that the scope of life is to realize who you are, that you are a soul full of bliss, full of eternal knowledge, and that the scope of life is to reconnect with the divinity, to go back to God. So
Mm.
That's
That's really
only like
beautiful the way you speak about that. Almost in, I suppose, would you describe it like this is just the car that harbors the soul type of thing, and this is just the outer shell, and at some point the bodies will kind of change, but it's the soul that kind of just migrates into another body. Is that kind of a way that you could describe it?
yes, and before Krishna consciousness, at some point I realized, that I had all the materialistic fulfillment. I was in a fulfilling relationship. I had a fulfilling career. I had all sorts of. I had a house. I had all sorts of materialistic fulfillments, but I felt like very like something is missing, like I
Right.
have something it was missing, and that materialistic enjoyment was was temporarily and didn't bring deep fulfillment.
Right, right. That's
So
very interesting because we, in the society that we live in, we feel that if we have this and we have that, and we look like this and we look like that, we kind of feel like we have it. But then I think if
Mhm.
we're all really transparent and honest with each other, there's always something missing, and you're
Yes,
then always reaching for the next thing, the next high, as it were.
exactly.
So the next handbag or the next dress or the next
Yeah,
that, and you never actually reach the pinnacle point of feeling satisfied. So that's quite interesting that you talk about that. I wanted
yeah.
to ask you, where's life now for you? How has Krishna consciousness impacted on your daily life now? Are you at peace? Are you at harmony? Where are you now?
So after I started practicing Krishna consciousness, of course, there was not my life was not only pink and it's like, of course, the challenges, the problems in life also continue to be. It's even if you are practicing a specific faith or not, this does not mean that you are not going through challenges, through difficulties. It's the faith. I think it only changes your perspective on or your reaction to the challenges. So actually, the most difficult challenges of my life occurred after Krishna consciousness and not
Mm.
before. But I'm glad that those difficult challenges occurred in my life after Krishna consciousness, because without this knowledge, without this faith, I don't know if how would I have dealt with them. And just to give you a specific example, I will try not to go very negative, but I think it's important, to share this, because I think maybe many people can resonate with. So last year, at some point, I couldn't see with my right eye, and soon after, the doctors discovered that I have like a brain tumor and needed to be removed. Otherwise, I would have go blind or even, lose my life. So, um, we always think like, oh, I know that, people are dying. I know that there are a lot of, medical issues, but for sure I would live until I reach my 80s, 90s, and so on. So very few people really acknowledge that, this may be my last day.
Mm, mm,
So I was like 39 when this happened, and it was a bit shocking for me, like, oh my God, so that was it. Like for several days, several weeks, I actually didn't know if I'll have like I'll live for the next day. So I was like, okay, so that was it. That was my journey until 39 years old. But and the difficulty was that I also have like little boy, and who was like 2 years.
mm.
And I however, chanting mantras and reading spiritual books, really, really helped me to maintain, my calm, my balance on those period in that period, and to manage to overcome the challenges. And I also, due to this faith, it turned out that difficulty was I perceive it like a blessing in disguise, but because it made me become much more present in my relationship with my boy, with my partner, with my friends. And now I'm not, thinking, okay, I'll live in until I was 80 or 90s. I am really trying.
Living in the present, living in the
Yes,
moment.
yes, yes,
Yes, yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing such a wonderful insight into your journey, Gabriela, of overcoming challenges to find peace. And your story is actually truly inspiring. You gave us some real life experiences that where your faith has impacted the course of your life. So we really appreciate your wisdom and your strength and
Thank
things
you.
that you've shared with us today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and for having this podcast, which really inspires people. You are doing like a really great service for others. Thank you.